Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Mitchell Group Media. Where are my FSBOs at? For sale by owner. So you want to sell your home by yourself? All right, let's get to it. I have a broker's license in the state of Florida, so my perspective and guidance is going to be based on my state requirements. So always consult with a local professional for guidance on your specific circumstances and your market. For sellers who are looking to avoid paying commissions, there are ways to list and sell a home as for sale by owner, or FSBO. This can range from a simple yard sign that reads for sale to discount listing services that may post the home's listing along with basic photos on a listing platform for a flat fee. Of course, there may not be any professional staging or marketing to advertise or generate foot traffic to see the home aside from the MLS, which may not be seen by any non-represented buyers other than syndications like in the apps. Buyers don't have access to the MLS where you're actually paying to list it. In addition, you may still consider cooperating with a buyer's broker, but that information will not be available on the MLS, which makes it less likely to encounter pre-qualified buyers working with an agent. Before we get into the details, please like and subscribe, and you can always circle back to this video at any time. It's going to be a lot of information, so I encourage you to revisit as needed. That leads us to many things that need to take place. I'll list them, and then we'll talk about them in detail. Prepare your home, market your home, manage commissions in the event you cooperate with a buyer's broker. Schedule, advertise, and host an open house. Qualify home buyers that want to see the property and be prepared to answer questions that a buyer may have if they don't have representation. If they do have representation, you better be prepared to go up against a professional during negotiations. Evaluate offers and negotiate counteroffering. Understand home inspections and the appraisal process and legal requirements of all timeframes when the services are to be performed. Provide for sale by owner disclosures. Know how to obtain and properly fill out a legally binding purchase and sale contract or have an attorney do so. Know the actual market value of your home and how many days in your market it's taking homes to sell at fair market value to give you an idea of when you may need to be moving and what to do if an all-cash buyer shows up the next day and you need to be out in 2 weeks. That is a rare case scenario, but you still need to be prepared nonetheless. While all the services just listed can be contracted out, just keep in mind all these paid-for services can end up costing you the same or more in commissions, fees, and time while you're doing all the work yourself instead of listing your property with an agent. Remember, if you're cooperating with a buyer's broker, you're only looking to save half the commission by selling it yourself. So is all that really worth 3%? This is the question you need to be able to answer. For some homeowners that have the necessary time and energy to deal with this on their own, it may be. Now, what does it mean to prepare your home? The most important aspect of preparing your home is to address deferred maintenance or material defects that affect value. If you don't, the inspection report will point out all of this, and the reduction that a buyer is going to be looking for isn't going to be the cost of him or her making these repairs on their own. It's going to be from a contractor's perspective. Curb appeal is also important, so the initial impression of the property needs to be looked at from a buyer's perspective. Maybe some paint, maybe some landscaping, maybe replace some rotting boards. Now let's get to the inside. It needs to be completely decluttered, and I recommend getting a storage unit and removing as much stuff as you can. Just getting it out of the property can already save you a lot of time and headache, but just make sure everything is clean and uncluttered, including the backyard if you have one. How do you market your property? You're going to have to spend some money to do this. You can pay to put your property on the MLS, and it will syndicate to all of the online platforms that 90% of buyers are using to search for homes online. You may not be able to convey whether or not you're cooperating with buyer brokers their commission on the MLS, which makes the chances of having a pre-qualified, ready, and able buyer brought to your doorstep by a realtor a lot less likely, even if you are, in fact, willing to pay their commission or compensation or whatever wording is most appropriate for your market. As changes in the cooperative commission criteria can occur at any time, you should stay up to date as they are currently changing under us as this information is being made available. You'll need to use as many social media platforms as you can to manually enter and advertise the property. You can also pay for advertisement spots and publications to feature the property, which come down to professional photography. You'll need to hire a professional to take photos or videos of the property. Drone videos come at a premium, but they sell the home 68% faster by offering more exposure than homes with standard images. That's why drone videos are included as part of my listing package. It's important to point out it's against the law and FAA regulation for anyone that doesn't have a commercial SUAS license to use a drone to take videos or photos of anything that you're going to be making money from. You'll be subject to an $11,000 fine, and if you hire someone who's unlicensed to do it for you, you're still subject to the $11,000 fine, while the person actually performing the unlicensed service is subject to civil penalties of up to $27,500 and criminal penalties with fines of up to $250,000 and or 3 years in prison for an unregistered drone. And this is per violation. So if you're marketing your property with a drone video or photos, you better have a licensed individual to credit them to, or you run the risk of whistleblowers reporting you, and it's just not worth it. Just hire a commercially licensed drone pilot or settle for photo and video from a non-drone source. Now you have to handle commissions, open houses, and show the property to potential buyers. If you offer a commission to buyer's agents, make sure they know it as mentioned before. Where and how you can do this will vary state to state and market to market. This can potentially alleviate some stresses of showing the property, especially if you want to drive would-be buyers to buyer agents so they can do the qualifying for you and you don't have to deal with the individuals, their finances, or lack thereof. And safety issues and concerns can be mitigated at this point with people reaching out to you, but you will still have to deal with random people showing up at your house unannounced and calls and texts 24/7. This is going to be a full-time job. This can be especially important when you have an individual walk up and say, I want to buy your property, but then neither one of you know which direction to take or how to facilitate a legally binding sales contract. If you're confident in qualifying the buyer, at this point, I would recommend hiring a real estate attorney to see it through to close. If you're cooperating with buyer brokers, I recommend putting a lockbox on the house so agents can tour the home when you're not there. A listing agent will use a lockbox as well. However, the ones we use require a digital key to access this type of lockbox, not a manual code. That way we keep track of who visits the property and when. You'll need to schedule and host an open house and be ready to deal with an influx of people and phone calls bombarding you after the open house and how to manage and qualify a large number of people in a very short period of time. So it would be in your best interest to reach out to a mortgage loan originator in case a potential buyer doesn't already have one or know how to go about it. Speaking of large number of people, it may be a good idea to have people assist you with the open house as you can't have eyes on everyone in your home, which is another reason why it's a good idea to get as much stuff out as possible before this happens. This is also a difference when listing a property. The open house is usually only attended by pre-qualified buyers with an agent. It's important at this point, however, to know the limitations of an unlicensed person helping you, as doing so with any expectations of any kind of compensation, no matter how small or what it is, on the sale of your home, falls under the crime of unlicensed practice of real estate and is a third-degree felony in the state of Florida. If convicted of unlicensed practice of real estate in Florida, the judge can impose penalties of up to $5,000 in fines, 5 years of probation, 5 years in prison, or all three. This doesn't mean you can't get help. It just means you can enlist help with any expectation of payment in any form based on the sale of your home. Being qualified from a mortgage lender from start to finish could take weeks. It depends on the individual and how readily available their financials are to provide the information to the mortgage lender. Your potential buyer needs to be pre-qualified, ideally by a mortgage lender as evidenced by a verified approval letter, desktop underwriter or DU, loan prospector or LP. Don't get sidetracked by a loan estimate letter. There's a difference, but even a diligent prospective buyer may not understand that. A pre-qualification doesn't require the lender to verify the information given to them. Only a verified approval letter does that. Now is a good time to watch my video on I'm Ready to Buy a Home. It outlines the details necessary for what a buyer and seller can expect in the purchase process. Once under contract, this is a period of time your home will be off the market. At this point until the property is sold, contingent backup offers are always a good idea. In case you have multiple offers at one time, you can choose which offer you think will most easily go to close and or net you the most money. Be ready to evaluate offers and counter offers. If a buyer makes a contingent offer and you accept, you may want a kick-out clause or write a first refusal clause where you can accept a better non-contingent offer should one present itself while under contract. Just keep in mind if you do, it can make a potential buyer wary of signing a contract with that type of contingency. Also, any changes or amendments to your contract will likely be more charges from your attorney. The most common contingency that you will encounter will be the appraisal, but that is already in the contract itself unless it is specifically waived. This is the reason why it's important to list your home at fair market value, because a mortgage company will not lend more money than the appraised value of the home. And contrary to any misconceptions that people may have, real estate agents have nothing to do with establishing the appraised value of a home. This comes straight from the appraisal. And property appraisers are governed by Florida Constitution and statutes to determine the appraised value of each parcel of property using the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, or USPAP. In Florida, a real estate agent is only legally able to perform an appraisal on a property that is valued at $250,000 or less. And even then, they can't be the listing agent for that property. And these days in South Florida, I've seen mailboxes that would appraise for that much. Know what type of market you're in. You'll have to negotiate differently in a seller's market than a buyer's market, so you'll need to know that. The buyer or buyer's agent normally draft the sales agreement, so start learning how to understand a sales agreement and write a counteroffer. The offers are usually time sensitive, so if everything has to go through your attorney, you may only have 24 hours to give a response. You don't have to accept a low offer, but you should always counter and give them a chance to come back with a more favorable price or terms. You may encounter an unrepresented buyer, and for this I recommend cooperating with a buyer's agent and even pairing a buyer and an agent together so you don't have to deal with that part. Buyers have the right to inspect the property. To potentially eliminate negotiations over such issues, you may want to use a reputable company that's well known in the area to go ahead and inspect the property for you. You will pay for that. However, the money that you can potentially save on the negotiation table could cover far more than what they're going to charge, because this will give you an idea of what you want to fix prior to this point, or at least what to expect in concession. Despite that, any buyer still has the right to their own inspection, which leads us to disclosures. You must disclose any material defects you know that may affect the value of the property as mandated by federal and state law, including but not limited to whatever fresh paint may cover up. Many times people try and conceal rotting wood on fascia and soffits with paint only to be uncovered by an inspector and have to be paid to be replaced and repainted again, costing you more time and more money. Even after the home is sold, if any of this comes to light, you will still be liable because by law you cannot conceal any material defect. You must give the buyer a copy of all required disclosures. Make sure you have your buyer sign a receipt indicating that you provided these documents, such as pest reports, HOA disclosures, title reports, and any home warranties that are applicable. Deadlines will come with various elements of the sale as indicated in the contract. In the state of Florida, unless otherwise agreed upon, the inspection period is 15 calendar days from the signing of the home purchase agreement by all parties, known as the effective date. This is also a good time to understand the time frames when associated with calendar days and business days. The lender will initiate the appraisal process after they receive notification that the offer has been accepted. This process can take days to weeks as well to complete, and as I mentioned before, be prepared for what your plan of action is in regards to the appraisal. Lenders will not loan money over appraised value. They will either have to pay out of pocket, or you will have to come down on the price, or they can get out of the contract altogether and the process can start all over again, even if you are willing to come down at that time. That's another reason why it's important to position the property correctly the first time. You're never going to know your buyer's situation or where their thought process is at. The price may be the first thing that people see, but I saved it for last because it's the most important. Many times for sale by owners list their properties under market value when it would have been possible to get the same amount of money listing your property and not dealing with any of the headache. On average, however, for sale by owner homes are listed 2% higher than market value or what a broker would list your home at. This may not sound like much, but at the end of the day, take into consideration all the time and effort to get to this point. Buyers may not be willing or able to come out of pocket to cover a short appraisal. So if you're saying, well, it's okay, I'll be willing to sell my home for the appraised value, then why would you overprice the listing and potentially have it on the market for a longer period of time than necessary just to come down to the price that it should have been listed at to start with, thereby selling your home much quicker? This is all part of pricing the property correct first time. Remember, from the first time the sales agreement is signed until the appraisal comes out, your property is under contract and not on the market during that time. So if you're recreating this process while taking into consideration the limited amount of time that a buyer may have by the time your home gets back on the market, all of the potential buyers that you may have accumulated for this property may have moved on, and so now the process has to start all over again. Buyers usually have representation, but their mortgage approvals are only good for a certain period of time, 45 to 90 days max, and you never know how far along in that process they are by the time they make it to you. So timing is of the utmost importance for both parties. There are occasionally for sale by owners that don't need to sell, so they're able to hold out for a higher dollar than the market will allow. What may be referred to as a make-me-move price. The home ends up going for sale, pending, back on the market, for sale, pending, back on the market. After just a couple of times of this, it does a few things. Number one, offers may stop getting submitted because they know the property is overpriced and the owner will not come down. The other thing that can happen is they feel like the home has some sort of deficiency and that people aren't aware of it until they get to the point of inspection, which they have to pay for, and their time frame will not allow them to take that chance. Another thing that can happen is if other homes in the neighborhood aren't selling, is it can potentially drive the price down even lower than what it would originally have sold for had it been listed appropriately the first time. Notice I said price and not value. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. It's interesting to share that according to NAR's 2023 profile of home buyers and sellers, for sale by owners homes sold for a median price of $225,000 nationwide, while the median agent-assisted home sold for $345,000. This is a price difference of 42%. Even when selling for sale by owner, you may still need to cooperate to 3% to the buyer's broker, unless otherwise you find an unrepresented buyer, which is rare. And by now you realize the process is a full-time job. I have several videos outlining many elements of a sale and purchase you may want to check out to better help you understand and navigate the process. Let me leave you with this. Take into consideration all the money that you may spend through the time and marketing and services on top of cooperating commission. In the event that it doesn't sell, you're not going to get that money back. And at that point, if you decide to list with a brokerage, you can effectively say, it would have been cheaper had you listed the property to begin with. Not all agents are the same, and if you had a bad experience, reach out to me, and if you're not in my market, I can put you in contact with a professional that I would feel comfortable doing business with in your market. Now that we've covered the majority of any issues and questions that a for sale by owner may have, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope the information is beneficial to you in some way, either by providing guidance and direction on your journey to sell your home, or by enlightening you on the rigors that industry professionals like myself face on a day-to-day basis, even when we have the knowledge, tools, and resources backing us to make this happen. If nothing else, it has certainly outlined what it is that we actually do. I wish you well. If you have found any of this information informative, please like and subscribe so it may help someone else. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.